Hello, friends, neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here. Welcome down to the Nook, and it's Saturday, and we're going to talk some great Canadian corn whiskey. So I have across here a few different bottles, but we're really just going to talk about these two. I've got Tabor corn. They called it like a BRBON. It's not a bourbon. It's made in Canada, but it's Tabor corn, and anybody in Canada knows that's the best corn. Then we've got Tabor corn whiskey. So this was actually a spirit. It's under 3 years. You can't call it whiskey here in Canada. Could call it a bourbon if it's made in the States. It's not. It's not a bourbon. And then this Tabor corn whiskey, finally, it's 3 years of age, and so they can call it a whiskey. So I'm going to talk about, here it was, about 2 years, I think, and then here it is finally at 3 years. And what I get out of these corn, barley, wheat mash out of Calgary, Alberta. Pour something Canadian. Come on back. 3, 4. Well, thanks for staying with me. I hope, I have got a great international audience in all sorts of different places, including the U.S. I know right now we're having a tough go, but this is to encourage people here in Canada and in the U.S., if you can get it, to consider Canadian whiskey. Why? Because this stuff is really, really good. It's not the usual Canadian stuff that's on everyone's shelf that's just big house. This is craft stuff. I've been down to Bridgeland and Calgary. I've met only online Jacques and Dan, and they are committed to excellent oaks and woods and beautiful grains, corn from Alberta, so local ingredients, doing it right. And I would hope anybody in any country would consider something out of Bridgeland. We're going to start with this Tabor corn. I keep struggling with it. They call this one what you would read off the label as bourbon, because it's not bourbon. It's not in the U.S. Only the U.S. can make bourbon, just like only Scotland can make scotch. But they can make a mash-styled whiskey, and that's what this is. It's corn, barley, and wheat, and a high barley. Like I think corn's around 60%, barley 32%, and wheat is 8%. Actually, I know that because it's right here on the label. Now, I wish they would have said natural color on the label. I have talked to them, and all of their whiskeys are natural color. So let's just get into it. And I'm sharing this because it just seems like a good weekend to celebrate some of the excellent whiskey that's present here in Canada, and I hope makes it overseas or across the border to our good neighbors down south. So here is the Tabor corn before it could be a whiskey. It's a 2-year-old corn whiskey mash, but it can't be called a whiskey because it's only 2 years. Let's try it on the nose. It's sweet. It's got that corn kind of that butteriness. Maybe not buttery. It's sweet. It's got that husk. It's got some really nice high vanillas. I know it's been aged in new oak. And a little bit of oak structure. It's very nice on the nose. Definitely on the sweeter, softer side. Let's try this one on the palate. Cheers. That's good. That's really good. It's surprisingly good at 2 years. It's got a nice brace of new oak, but sweet oak. I've got light toffees and caramels, not dark, not roasted, not burnt. I got sugars, almost brown sugars, and really nice interplay of a little bit of husk or nuttiness from like it's got a lot of barley, like 32. Usually in a mash bill, you'll get like 5% barley to open it all up, and then you get kind of rye for flavor and lots of corn. Here we've got lots of corn at 60%. We've got lots of barley, and it gives it to me a bit of a nuttiness, a huskiness, which I'm glad is braced or backed with new oak. I think mash bills like this really get good interplay, and I know I've talked to them about their wood management. They have some really nice new oak casks built just for them. This is good stuff. I'm going to have another little sip. Cheers. Yeah, it still leans a little into a not quite sugary. It's not sweet and forgettable like a lot of just aged in softer oaks, because it has that nice brace, that back, 45%. but it does, to me right now, play into that sweet corn, into that sweet cream. And it is, there's no rye in here, and the barley nutty, and the wheat is just softer and creamier. So if you're looking for that kind of style, but you want something with, it's 45%, it's not on the floor at 40, and it definitely has new oak running through it. If you can still find this, I think it's a good value. You should consider picking it up. I'm not sure if this is available anymore, and so actually if it is, it may not be a good value anymore because it's probably sought after, because they now have aged stock. So they've got something like this. Now this release here, you can tell their signature, I'm not sure what they're called, but when they have special artisan releases, they use the red, and it just looks so good. It doesn't come out on the camera as well, but what we have here is exactly the same mash. We've got that 60% corn, 32 barley, 8% wheat. But instead of 2 years, so in Canada, it's a spirit. You can't even call it a whiskey. We're at least 3 years old. I don't know if it's 3.5 or where they are, but now we have an actual Tabor corn whiskey that's been in a mash bill, aged in new oak. And as I said, it's that mashed style corn whiskey, and I like it that they call this. We need to be upfront. I struggled that they called this something that would read like a bourbon. And Okanagan puts out a BRBN, which again reads like a bourbon. And I know they're saying like the regular consumer doesn't really understand and they think bourbon, but bourbon is US. And I've had many excellent bourbons and look forward to having many more. But this is a style of whiskey, just like when we have nice single malt, like this one over here. We don't call it a scotch or misspell scotch. And I just encourage local distilleries to get behind something like corn whiskey, corn mash whiskey, something so people can start to learn. Just like when we say single malt, it's all barley. We can say maybe a corn whiskey or something like that, and we know that it's made in that style. Anyways, this one on the nose, it's 55% instead of 45%. Now that's interesting. I've got a little more spice, it's not quite licorice, but there's something else going on. Yeah, this is a little more approachable. It's 45, but I think people will resonate with this. They've had a similar style whiskey. They'll know what it is. This has that, but it's got a little something else going on. A little, yeah, I'm going to say star anise. Star anise, no, just a little bit of anise. It's just something darker and huskier in here. It is darker in color. It's been in the new oak longer. But there's a little spicing, it's not quite peppering, it's something else. To me, it's a little black ball licorice. Let's try this one on the palate. Cheers. Well, that's really good on the palate. Really good. If they still sell this one, it is strong cinnamons, dark oaks, some char, some smoke, and the spice. Thankfully that licorice, because I know licorice can be hot cold for many people, has been backed off, so we're away from licorice, but there is a depth of flavor, like a cooked caramel or a blackened sugar that runs in here that gives it a little more body and a little more husk. This is an excellent Tabor corn whiskey. I'm so happy that they used Alberta corn, some of the best out there. And then, of course, they used Alberta barley and wheat as well to get in there. So this is really, really good stuff. If you can find this, it is a little more expensive. I know I said this one, I think, for a little while was somewhat value because it really didn't qualify as a whiskey. This is a bit more of a challenge. You're going to pay a little bit more for it, but I think the rewards are great. Thank you for coming here and listening a bit to Bridgeland Distillery. They're in Alberta and they're making some excellent whiskey on any stage, local or international.